Do you know that there's a harsh reality? 80% of the world's wealth is held by just 20% of the population. And yet, a billion people still live below the poverty line on just 99 cents a day. Today, in our world, countless individuals struggle with extreme poverty. By 2009, the number of hungry people globally had reached an unprecedented high of 1 billion. But after extensive research, the authors of the book I want to introduce to you today uncovered a peculiar, shared phenomenon among the poor. Why do they buy televisions when they don't even have enough to eat? This mirrors so many situations in Vietnam. Why do people go out drinking when they don't have enough money? Why do children in impoverished families dislike going to school, even when they receive subsidies to attend? The book, *Pooreconomics, translated into Vietnamese as Hiu Engio Thot Engio, by Abhijit V. Banerjee and Esther Duflo, won the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences in 2019. The authors meticulously peel back the layers of poverty, analyzing its root causes from various aspects of daily life, such as education, healthcare, and more. It also delves into the mindset behind the poverty trap, forcing each of us to reflect on our own way of living. Whether you're an ordinary person striving to avoid the clutches of poverty, someone dedicated to poverty eradication, or a charitable worker, this is undoubtedly a book worth reading and contemplating. Surely, all of us have experienced periods of hardship. The book introduces the term poverty trap. So, what exactly is the poverty trap? Let me explain it with a story. There was a wealthy man in Hong Kong who believed that the poor could only change their lives by starting their own businesses. So, he decided to challenge himself, to become rich starting from absolute zero. He even hired a documentary crew to film his life at the very bottom of society. He strictly forbade himself from using credit cards or family money, determined to survive solely by his own two hands. But in just a few months, he completely collapsed. There simply weren't any opportunities. For someone living in Hong Kong, earning just a few million dong a month, it was difficult enough to feed oneself, let alone invest in further education or completely transform one's life. This story perfectly illustrates the meaning of the poverty trap that the authors wanted to convey. The poor remain poor. It raises the question, why do the rich get richer, while the poor remain perpetually impoverished? The poverty trap compels us to look back at the past few years, as sudden crises like pandemics swept across the globe. Unplanned spending habits and abrupt life changes, such as unemployment and illness, have plunged many already struggling families into even deeper despair. So, why do the poor stay poor while the rich grow even wealthier? It's often said that wealth doesn't last for more than 3 generations, but poverty, it seems, can be endless. Can you truly become rich by working hard? If you weren't born into privilege, can you really achieve wealth? What is the true nature of poverty? What are the thoughts and motivations of the poor? Why can't they escape poverty? The authors of this book posed similar questions, and through its pages, we will understand the true nature of destitution and why people remain trapped in it. I will now analyze the root causes and the true essence of poverty, as explored in the book. The more you eat, the poorer you get, or the poorer you get, the more you eat. The authors recount a story from the book. In a remote mountain village in Morocco, Ben met a man named Achama. When asked what he would do with more money, Achama immediately replied that he would buy more food. What surprised them immensely was that his home was already equipped with a television, a satellite dish, and a DVD player. When asked why he bought these items when his family didn't have enough to eat, he simply smiled and replied, "Oh, television is more important than food." In reality, many people spend their money this way. The authors discovered that when the poor receive money, they often don't save it for energy-rich food. Instead, their homes must always have tea and sugar. A significant amount of money is spent on items that offer little nutritional value and cannot satisfy hunger, but bring a sense of joy. The television, too, serves as a comforting companion in their otherwise hopeless lives. An English novelist, in the book *The Road to Wigan Pier*, described the lives of the poor in England this way. Their diet consisted mainly of white bread, butter, canned beef, tea, sugar, and potatoes. These foods were terrible, but they refused to spend money on healthier options. A millionaire might enjoy a glass of orange juice and crispy biscuits for breakfast, but an unemployed person would not. When unemployed, you don't crave bland, healthy foods. You want something delicious. There will always be cheap and tasty temptations. It is human nature to seek gustatory satisfaction. Those with knowledge and self-discipline will make themselves eat healthier. However, healthy food often tastes bland and unappealing. Faced with the temptation of unhealthy foods, the poor are often powerless to resist. They fail to understand that this very behavior traps them in poverty. The reason for this is their lack of awareness of the long-term benefits of healthy nutrition, and crucially, their inability to delay immediate gratification. Think about it. When you return home from work or school, you pass numerous bakeries, bubble tea shops, and street food stalls. It's incredibly hard to resist their allure. You're exhausted after a long day, and the sweet, rich, enticing aromas intoxicate you. It's difficult to control yourself. The poor are no different. In their stressful, miserable daily lives, the television is a comforting spiritual friend, while tea and sugar offer instant pleasure. Tightening belts just to save face. What do you think about this issue? The authors discovered that in poorer regions, people place even greater emphasis on etiquette and social standing. Do you know how magnified this emphasis can become? In India, for example, many women commit suicide because, in that culture, a daughter needs a dowry to get married. If money isn't provided, she's seen as inferior. Gradually, this has become a mandatory custom. No money, no marriage. It's similar in Africa, where records show that the poor in developing countries spend vast sums on weddings, dowries, baptisms, and other ceremonies. The biggest reason is their fear of losing face. In some countries, many young people infected with HIV die prematurely, and because they are so young, they haven't saved enough for their funerals. So, their families must shoulder the burden of organizing these ceremonies. But did you know that the cost of a funeral in these countries can amount to 40% of a family's annual income? This is an exorbitant sum for a funeral, yet it is considered an essential custom. In our own lives, too, you might often find yourself forced to spend expensively just to save face. The price of this dignity often comes at the cost of immense hardship. Only believing what you know. In this section, I want to discuss health. Each year, approximately 9 million children die before the age of 5, and 1/5 of these deaths are due to dysentery. As you know, dysentery is not difficult to cure. Simply spending about 18 cents on a disinfectant can provide access to clean water. Yet, a large number of families in some parts of Africa do not do this and accept drinking contaminated water. Many doctors and public hospitals express immense frustration because numerous parents bring their children for examination but refuse to trust the doctor's advice. In some cases, dehydration only requires the addition of salt and sugar, but they always believe that antibiotics or surgery are necessary. Only when needles, IV drips, or surgery are involved do they think the doctor is actually treating them. Or consider this. Spending just $4 on a mosquito net can reduce the risk of malaria by 30%. Or taking vaccinations, vitamin B supplements, iron pills, and other low-cost items. Yet they are unwilling to spend money on these things. Furthermore, the book states that 42% of households worldwide do not have toilets. If you pay attention, you'll still see many communal rental buildings in Vietnam where people use public restrooms. In India, some areas don't even have public toilets, and everyone defecates in the open, turning flies and mosquitoes into sources of infectious diseases. These conditions persist due to a knowledge gap, but disseminating information remains an incredibly difficult challenge. You might ask, don't the poor care about their health? Most would reply, yes, I care deeply about my health, but their actions always leave us pondering. They don't utilize inexpensive preventive methods. Only when they fall ill or their condition worsens do they agree to spend money to see a doctor. But by then, treatment has become prohibitively expensive. In India, for example, many people are willing to pay for private doctors. However, investigations reveal that a significant number of these individuals are fake doctors, lacking qualifications and expertise. Here's a crucial point we need to address: the sunk cost fallacy in their psychology. The poor often believe that free things are ineffective. Free medicine, free vaccinations, they think none of it works. Ultimately, it's because the poor find it very difficult to accept investing up front, and vaccination is seen precisely as an upfront investment. Upon hearing this, many might wonder why the poor are so uneducated. Everyone knows this information, why don't they understand? Let's not be too quick to judge. Never think that you are wiser. The authors wrote a passage that deeply moved me. The circumstances of the poor often mirror our own. They lack information, have wavering beliefs, and procrastinate. It's true that we are not poor. We have received proper education and possess much knowledge. But the difference between us and the poor is truly very small, because our knowledge is less than we think. You shouldn't assume that these principles are self-evident and that everyone should understand them. We live in homes with clean water. We don't have to think about adding disinfectant every morning. We trust doctors in public hospitals. Our children receive full vaccinations. In other words, we take these things for granted and don't need skills like self-control or judgment. But the poor are different. They lack understanding and desperately need these abilities. Therefore, we cannot read this book with a sense of superiority over the poor. We must always reflect from their perspective. What can we do to help them? Do we need to re-examine our own spending habits? Have we truly invested long-term in our health? And are we perhaps living within our own limited understanding? All or nothing. In this section, we will discuss education. Education is one of the most crucial ways to escape poverty. In many places, governments encourage the poor to send their children to school by offering rewards of $5 or $10 if a child reaches the 6th grade, and even more if they make it to middle school. Yet, many still don't send their children to school. They calculate the investment as too great, the 9 years of compulsory education too heavy a burden, especially with many children at home. Here, I want to briefly discuss having many children. The truth is, the poorer people are, the more children they tend to have. I'm very curious as to why people in poor regions want to have so many children. The reason is not a lack of contraception. The authors conducted research and found that the main reason the poor want many children is because they believe old age care is extremely important. Sons are often seen as capable of more heavy labor than daughters, so they strive to have more children to ensure they have sons. This directly leads to larger families. Furthermore, this is also an economic choice for the poor. They don't know which child will truly be able to support them in old age. Therefore, the authors suggest that perhaps the most effective population policy is to make people feel that they don't need to have many children, especially sons. To achieve this, an effective social security system must function well, including health insurance and old age pensions, to significantly reduce the birth rate and gender discrimination against women. Returning to the issue of education, precisely because they have many children, many poor families adopt an all-or-nothing approach to education. For example, if a family has 3 children, they might send 2 to school, pushing them until high school to see which one performs better, then investing further in that child's education. Additionally, in another aspect, many countries have very poor quality public school systems. If you watch Indian films, you'll see that parents absolutely dare not send their children to public schools. They will find every way to enroll them in private schools. Investigations reveal that public schools are often subpar because a large number of teachers are absent, frequently take leave, or dismiss students early. Here, the authors advise that to solve the problem of education in poor areas, the greatest responsibility still lies with the government, which needs to implement measures to build trust among teachers and children. What about us? What can we do? We can volunteer to teach. Perhaps even a small contribution from you can make a big difference. We cannot underestimate the impact of teaching and volunteering in poor regions. Investigations show that students from cities who volunteer in poor areas bring immense value. They have brought about many positive changes, igniting a spark of hope and conviction in children, making them realize that education is incredibly important, thereby contributing to changing the lives of many children. Poor risk management ***. Finally, let's discuss the ability to cope with risk. When facing economic risk, the poor often choose to increase their workload, taking on more jobs. Furthermore, the types of jobs they typically undertake are side gigs or short-term positions. Taking on many different jobs makes it very difficult for someone to become a specialist or truly excel in any particular field. In addition, their frequent relocation also contributes to their continued poverty. Moving regularly from one place to another prevents stable social connections, which is another crucial reason why they face higher economic risks. Compared to the poor, the rich have more capital, more opportunities, broader networks, and wider access to information. They also inherently possess a willingness to take risks. Therefore, their chances of success are higher. As it is written in the Gospel of Matthew, "For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away." The poor often start businesses not to pursue an ideal, but out of life's necessities. They might open a small shop, not sell competitive products, and not dare to expand, because doing so would introduce too much uncertainty. These are some of the reasons why the poor remain poor. But to grasp this more deeply and thoroughly, you should read the book in detail. The authors spent 15 years researching, investigating, and distilling these valuable insights. In conclusion, I will highlight some key points and summarize why we struggle with poverty. 1. Poverty is inherited from parents. The mindset, class perspective, personal connections, and experiences of parents profoundly influence a person's entire life, from personality and thinking to life motivation. This influence is like DNA, passed down from one generation to the next. 2. Focusing on immediate physical and mental gratification. If you find reading books dry and boring, but effortlessly enjoy playing games, browsing social media, watching videos or movies, then you are similar to the poor, who only think of immediate physical and mental satisfaction. This is the very trap of poverty. We fail to overcome temptations, often spending time browsing the web, binge-watching shows, or playing games. This kind of instant gratification can bring immense pleasure. It's unlike learning or reading books, which require long-term investment to see results. 3. Making only short-term plans without building long-term strategies. We often tend to be pessimistic, lacking confidence in future predictions, and prone to greed, impulsivity, and speculative opportunism, which leads to failure. 4. Lack of willingness to learn. An unwillingness to learn diminishes cognitive ability. This reduced cognitive ability, in turn, extinguishes the desire to learn further. This is a deadly cycle and precisely the poverty trap. To escape poverty requires diligence and wisdom. It demands investment in health, nutritious eating, prioritizing children's education, and accessing safe, comprehensive information. Only then can we truly break free from poverty. The reasons why the poor remain poor reflect a brutal societal reality. If you read this entire book, observing, reflecting, and deeply understanding the nature of poverty, you will then be able to master your own life. May you build a prosperous life for yourself, not merely rich in material wealth, but more importantly, rich in health, mindset, spirit, and soul.